The cabin air smells of stale tobacco, upholstery, and cheap cologne. It is November 24th, 1971, Thanksgiving Eve. Outside the oval window of Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305, a dense, freezing Pacific Northwest rain is lashing against the metal hull. To the 36 passengers on board, this is just a routine 30-minute hop from Portland to Seattle. But in row 18, a man sitting by himself is about to trigger a chain of events that will completely paralyze the United States federal government for the next 50 years. He bought his $20 ticket using cash under the name Dan Cooper. He looks completely unremarkable, mid-40s, wearing a dark business suit, a black raincoat, and heavy sunglasses. He orders a bourbon and soda, waiting calmly until the aircraft lifts off into the turbulent sky. As the seatbelt sign chimes, Cooper leans slightly into the aisle. He catches the eye of a 23-year-old flight attendant named Florence Schaffner and hands her a folded note. Florence drops the note into her purse unopened, assuming it is just another lonely businessman slipping her his phone number. But Cooper leans closer, his voice low, measured, and chillingly polite. "Miss, you better look at that note. I have a bomb." Florence's fingers tremble as she retrieves the paper. The words are printed in neat, rigid, all-capital felt-tip ink. "Miss, I have a bomb in my briefcase and want you to sit by me." She sits beside him, keeping her composure, and whispers a request to see the threat. Cooper clicks open his cheap black attaché case, just an inch. Inside, nestled in the shadows, Florence glimpses a tangled mass of red cylinders, heavy wires, and a massive cylindrical battery. It looks exactly like dynamite. Cooper snaps the case shut and delivers his demands with the calm precision of an executive ordering lunch. $200,000 in negotiable $20 bills, packed into a knapsack, and 4 parachutes. If anyone blinks, the plane blows. The pilot radios the ground, and in an instant, a standard commercial flight transforms into the most daring act of air piracy the world has ever witnessed. For nearly 2 hours, the plane circles in a holding pattern over Seattle, burning fuel while federal agents scramble on the ground. Below, the FBI is in a state of absolute chaos. They are frantically printing 10,000 unmarked $20 bills from the Seattle First National Bank, rapidly recording every single serial number. They look for parachutes, forcing a local skydiving school operator to open up shop in the middle of the night to provide the gear. Up in the air, Cooper is completely unflustered. He isn't pacing. He isn't shouting. He even chats casually with the passengers, completely unaware of the absolute terror building in the cockpit. He checks his watch repeatedly, calculating the exact time required for the ground teams to comply. At 5:46 p.m., the jet finally touches down at a darkened terminal at Seattle-Tacoma Airport. Cooper orders the pilots to taxi to an isolated, brightly lit section of the runway. He demands that the cabin lights be completely extinguished to prevent police snipers from getting a clean shot through the glass. Another flight attendant, Tina Mucklow, steps off the plane into the freezing downpour to retrieve the heavy sack of cash and the 4 parachutes. Cooper inspects the money calmly. True to his word, he allows all 36 passengers and Florence Schaffner to disembark into the rain, completely unharmed. Most of the passengers step onto the tarmac without ever realizing they have been held hostage by a man with a bomb. Now, the plane is empty, save for Cooper, Tina Mucklow, and the 3 cockpit crew members. Cooper barks his next instruction to the captain, William Scott. He wants a flight plan charted straight from Mexico City. But he adds a series of highly technical aeronautical conditions that leave the pilots pale. The plane must fly no higher than 10,000 feet. The landing gear must remain extended. The wing flaps must be set to 15 degrees, and the cabin must remain completely unpressurized. He is forcing a commercial airliner to fly at the absolute minimum speed possible without stalling out of the sky. The crew realizes this man isn't just a desperate criminal. He understands the exact structural limits of a Boeing 727. At 7:40 p.m., the Boeing 727 roars back into the storm, heading south toward Reno, Nevada, for a refueling stop. The flight is flanked in the dark by two F-106 fighter jets trailing far behind to avoid detection. Inside the unpressurized cabin, the temperature plunges to freezing. The air pressure drops violently, filling the space with a deafening roar of wind. Cooper orders Tina Mucklow into the cockpit with the rest of the crew, locking the cabin door behind her. He is completely alone in the dark. At exactly 8 p.m., a warning light flashes on the pilot's dashboard. The aft stairs, the hidden exit door located directly underneath the tail of the plane, have been unlatched. The captain radios over the intercom. "Is there anything we can do for you?" Cooper's voice comes back one final time, cold and definitive. "No." At 8:13 p.m., the aircraft's tail suddenly pitches upward with a violent, jarring motion, forcing the pilots to fight the controls to stabilize the jet. The wind is howling through the open stairs at nearly 200 miles per hour, slicing through the interior like ice knives. When the plane finally touches down in Reno hours later, FBI agents storm the cabin with weapons drawn. They find the rear door gaping open, the stairs scraping against the concrete runway in a shower of sparks. But the cabin is completely empty. Dan Cooper is gone. He had stepped out onto the open stairs in the middle of a freezing, blinding thunderstorm into absolute blackness over the rugged, mountainous forests of southwest Washington. He wore nothing but a thin business suit, a trench coat, and leather street shoes. He left behind only two things: a handful of cigarette butts and his black J.C. Penney clip-on tie resting on seat 18E. The man the media would mistakenly dub D.B. Cooper had vanished into the abyss, leaving the federal government holding nothing but an empty tie and a mystery that would defy comprehension for generations. The FBI launches an investigation codenamed NORJAC, Northwest Hijacking. It instantly becomes one of the largest, most exhaustive manhunts in American history. Army troops, federal agents, and local sheriffs flood the estimated drop zone near the Lewis River. They hack through thousands of acres of impenetrable forest, drag frozen lakes, and use specialized military helicopters to scan the canopy for any sign of a parachute or a body. They find absolutely nothing. Not a shred of fabric, not a footprint, not a broken branch. The Bureau profiles the suspect, checking over 800 potential targets across the nation. They look for military paratroopers, disgruntled airline employees, and survivalists. Every single lead evaporates into a dead end. The primary question splitting the investigative teams down the middle is simple. Did he even survive the jump? Experienced skydivers tell the FBI that leaping into a 200-mile-per-hour freezing wind vortex at night over a dense forest with an unsteerable emergency parachute was essentially a suicide mission. They believe Dan Cooper died before he ever touched the ground, his body swallowed up by the wilderness. But then, the case takes a shocking turn. In February of 1980, an 8-year-old boy named Brian Ingram is vacationing with his family on the banks of the Columbia River, just downriver from Vancouver, Washington. As he scrapes through the wet sand to build a campfire, his fingers hit a rotting, waterlogged package. He pulls out 3 degraded bundles of cash held together by crumbling rubber bands. It is nearly $6,000 in $20 bills. The FBI rushes to the scene, checking the serial numbers against their master log from 1971. It is an exact match. This is Cooper's ransom money. The discovery sends shockwaves through the Bureau. The money was found miles away from the initial search zone, buried just inches beneath the surface of the sand. But it raises a far more terrifying question. How did the cash get there? If Cooper died in the woods miles away, how did a portion of the money wash ashore perfectly intact years later? Or did Cooper survive, bury the cash, and walk away into a new life under a new name, laughing at the net that was built to catch him? Decades rolled past, and the files grew heavier with theories. Suspects like Richard Floyd McCoy, who pulled off an identical parachute hijacking just 5 months later, were thoroughly investigated and ultimately ruled out by the flight crew's physical descriptions. Other names like Sheridan Peterson and Robert Rackstraw became internet sensations, but the concrete forensic proof never materialized. The clip-on tie Cooper left behind yielded partial DNA fragments, but the code remained too incomplete to provide a name. On July 12, 2016, after 45 years of unyielding surveillance, thousands of interviews and millions of dollars spent, the FBI made an unprecedented announcement. They officially suspended the active investigation into the D.B. Cooper hijacking. The greatest mystery in the history of global aviation was closed, left permanently unresolved. The exit of Dan Cooper from Flight 305 completely forced the commercial airline industry to transform its entire architecture. It brought about mandatory luggage screening, metal detectors at gates, and the installation of the mechanical Cooper vane, a latch that locks the rear stairs of planes permanently from the outside mid-flight. But the mystery leaves a chilling finality in the quiet forests where he fell. Dan Cooper didn't just steal money. He stole his own identity from the archives of history. He remains the only skyjacker in global history to beat the system, step off the edge, and vanish into the cold American night. The file is closed, the tracking screens are dark, but out there in the wind over Washington state, the ghost of Row 18 is still falling through the dark, keeping his secrets completely in the dark forever.